Good day, YouTube. This is El Cid doing his first video of this sort on the platform. My aim here will be to provide commentary, review, and hopefully invite robust discussion. The topic of this video will be the rather critical mass of anonymous sources being used by the mainstream legacy media for some time now. Specifically, their efforts to use them in what has been characterized by the President and his allies as a witch hunt. Now, to claim that quoting nebulous sources within several intelligence services is indicative of sophistry and character assassination is putting it quite mildly. CNN Politics themselves, as recently as a week and change ago, featured an article by Chris Cillizza titled, "What Anonymous Sources Cost Journalism?" In this article, Cillizza mentions Deputy Attorney General Rod Rosenstein and a recent statement which the largely bipartisan figure made against the use of unnamed, and therefore unverifiable sources by the news media. He insisted that stories which make use of them are rightly viewed with extreme skepticism. And why not? There is fundamentally zero difference between making claims based on the word of people, none of whom are willing to go on the record, and simply inventing a narrative out of thin air and supporting it with anonymous sources. Cillizza reached out to Jay Rosen, a professor of journalism and the author of Press Think, a blog about media and politics, ostensibly to seek this man's perspective on the history of such sourcing and what it might mean for the future of the media. Interestingly, Cillizza's first question boils down to asking whether caution on the part of readers when reading stories sourced in this way is warranted. Now, as you can read for yourself, as the article is referenced and linked below, Rosen tap dances a bit at this point. He draws an equivalency between Rosenstein's warning as being vague and opaque and suggests that he should be more direct as to why he is warning people away from stories he may know to be misleading. In the end, however, Rosen does concede that the problem with confidential sourcing is that this practice is just as opaque. Further on, Rosen points to the practice as far back as the 18th century in parliamentary settings. The main idea being that the losers in a political debate were apt to make use of the print media by confidentially going public in the papers so as to shift the outcome of a dispute by applying pressure via public opinion and outcry. This practice remains all but unchanged even today, evidenced, in my opinion, by the phenomenon of Obama-era holdovers within the current administration either plotting and leaking anonymously against the executive or the media at large exercising carte blanche by claiming the existence of high-level confidential sources. More on that in a moment. Back to Rosen, he points to this practice growing more common, owing in part to publications such as Politico, Business Insider, and Axios making broad use of what he calls blind sources. That this modus operandi has spread beyond smaller outlets and since been adopted by titans such as CNN itself should come as no real surprise. The last two questions in the article address the issue of how Obama treated leakers and whistleblowers relative to Trump, who is still just coming into office. The criminal case against a leaker mentioned here no doubt refers to the young lady facing serious charges. This woman obliquely referenced is, of course, the poorly named reality winner, who incorrectly thought that she would become the next Snowden, and is instead facing felony counts under the Espionage Act for leaking a classified report to the news media. I find it intriguing that Rosen brought this up, since Ms. Winner apparently attempted to provide this document anonymously, but was arrested by the FBI shortly thereafter, and confessed to producing a hard copy and mailing it to a news outlet. It's important to note that this leak made no reference to collusion between Trump and the Kremlin, only that the GRU apparently conducted cyber attacks relating to voting software. While this seems at least somewhat damning on the face of it, no proof of any foreign alterations being made to vote tallies or anything of the sort exists, which simply places Ms. Winner's efforts in the same league as an attempted smear and effort to delegitimize the Trump administration. A New York Times article on this matter is likewise referenced and linked in the description. Cillizza's own article wraps up by him posing a fill-in-the-blank to Rosen concerning what anonymous sources are with regard to modern journalism. Rosen's response can be condensed to news accounts reliant on confidential sources, not containing the information required to engender trust from readers, viewers, and other consumers of news. He makes the point that we cannot go to the source because it is hidden from view and scrutiny. Thus, trusting these reports reflects more on trust extended to the reporting staff's reputation. I argue that this is just as easily enabled by confirmation bias. The number of loyal viewers and readers who are hungry for dirt against Donald Trump will place trust in these stories because they reinforce their preconceived notions and distaste for the man, not because anything substantive against him exists. Now, recent events are surely making it clear where the comparison point of this video will come from. Project Veritas, under James O'Keefe, released videos this week revealing CNN host Van Jones and supervising producer John Bonifield both being caught on camera, explicitly stating that the Russian story is a nothing burger and mostly bullshit, respectively. I will link to each as well, rather than directly playing them here. The points of contention offered by the media are fairly weak, ranging from Bonifield being primarily employed as a producer for medical pieces to the usual accusations that Veritas edited these videos in an effort to craft a conspiracy theory, to straight up ignoring the revelations despite the preponderance of audiovisual evidence involved. Jones even went so far as to pen an op-ed and appear on CNN claiming that the video is a hoax and calling O'Keefe a con artist. The linked video has an odd lack of addressing Bonifield's statements and his accounts of CNN head Jeff Zucker insisting on pressing the Russia narrative. This is damage control, pure and simple, and Jones valiantly trying to keep his own head off the chopping block, though it's likely curtains for Bonifield. Here, we see instances of sources not only being verifiable, but their words and attitudes preserved for posterity, and an alarming number of people in the media, as well as general populace, still find it expedient to dismiss these blatant displays as mere right-wing propaganda. Naturally, no proof is offered to support these assertions, and the game will inevitably shift to the left committing a cardinal sin of reasoned debate by demanding that their opponents prove a negative, i.e., they themselves cannot conclusively point to any real evidence that Trump colluded with the Russians or that the Russians actually hacked the 2016 election. And so, the latest dodge is becoming to demand that Trump supporters prove that he did not collude with Putin and that the Russians did not hack the election. This is the height of arrogance, as well as utterly bankrupt in terms of morality and logic. The Western tradition of innocent until proven guilty precludes this sort of horrid practice in a court of law, but it is clearly fair game in the court of public opinion, at least so long as swaths of the citizenry continue to be led by ready-made conclusions and accusations even when there is no proof to support them, and refuse to acknowledge evidence which challenges their worldview.